Tonight, the story of a woman scarred in childhood, now taking on a powerful pastor and the church she says let her down when she needed them most. And she's not alone. Over the course of our investigation, we met several other former church members from around the country who have banded together to call themselves survivors. So what do they say they survived? The very place you'd think they should have felt safest, their church.
At this church on a cold Sunday evening 13 years ago, a frightened young girl says she was forced to stand before the congregation.
She was up there all by herself in front of hundreds of people.
I was sobbing.
Like a scene from the Salem witch trial, she says she was forced to confess a sin.
There was just dread and fear.
A sin so terrible, she says, she was banished, sent away from her church and her home in disgrace.
I believed that it was my fault.
That girl was Tina Anderson. For years, she was silent about what happened that night.
I never thought the truth would come out.
People are petrified to come forward and talk about this.
Cover up after cover up after cover up.
It's a religious subculture many Americans have never heard of. They are called the Independent Fundamental Baptist Churches. There are thousands of IFB churches across the country with hundreds of thousands of members. We talked to victims who described physical and sexual abuse that went unpunished in their congregations for years.
Nearly every town has at least one Independent Fundamental Baptist church.
IFB churches are ultra-conservative, interpreting the Bible literally, governed by what they call a doctrine of separation, considering themselves spiritually superior.
Catholics, Jews, and Muslims, I assure you, are well beyond the pale.
We're all going to hell.
Yes.
There were a lot of rules, a lot of them about dress, very conservative, very long, very high-necked dresses.
Your knees need to be covered at all times.
How strict are we talking about here?
We weren't allowed to hold hands with a boy.
You couldn't go to the movies.
We were not allowed to have any rock beat in our music.
Men are in charge.
It was ingrained in our head, we don't question.
Women are in a subordinate role.
No time for cooking, no time for cleaning, no time for loving, no time for the husband.
Male power that has allegedly led to serious abuses.
It's God at the top, then the husband, then the wife, and then the children in that chain of command. And it tends to be very unforgiving, very hierarchical, and also, in many cases, tragically abusive.
But this IFB pastor condemns the abuse and insists that IFB churches are not all the same.
We care about people.
I gotta touch people's lives.
We want to show the greatest love.
What really happened to Tina Anderson? Growing up in Concord, New Hampshire, Tina's IFB church was the only world she knew.
We were there at the church at least 6 days a week, sometimes 7. All of my friends were there.
So your school was at the church?
Correct.
Your entire life was the church?
Correct. The children were expected to obey without question, and wives to submit to their husbands and do what they wanted. And really, you were expected to listen to the pastor and do what he said.
The pastor's word was God's word, in essence?
Yes. You weren't supposed to question the pastor. It's his way or the highway.
So you grew up thinking that everybody else in every other religion, everybody was doing it wrong?
Correct.
Critics say that the IFB's strict interpretation of the Bible often includes the practice known as breaking the will of the child, including physical force.
If you're not bruising your child, you're not spanking the child enough.
They taught that if you don't spank your children, they won't turn out right.
Every child's will needs to be broken?
Correct.
Through physically spanking them?
Yes.
With what?
Different families used different things. Daniel used a belt or a wooden cutting board on us.
Daniel is Daniel Leaf, Tina's stepfather and a longtime member of the IFB church. For years, he beat Tina and her brother.
Daniel would physically abuse us. He beat us severely.
So severely that in 1989 he went to prison for nearly a year. But the abuse didn't stop there.
He has also sexually abused me.
Between the ages of 9 and 11, Tina says her stepfather sexually molested her and threatened to kill her if she told anyone. Tina says only after Leaf was sent to prison a second time for sexually molesting another minor did she have the courage to confide in her pastor, Chuck Phelps.
I was told by Pastor Phelps that a good Christian forgives and forgets and moves on with their life and doesn't press charges.
Your pastor told you you should forgive and forget?
Yes. He made me go to the prison to grant Daniel forgiveness.
He made you go to the prison and say what?
I forgive you for what you've done.
In a statement, Pastor Phelps denies Tina told him that her stepfather molested her, but Tina says she remembers vividly going to the prison to carry out her pastor's instructions.
What was that like?
It was torture, but I thought I was doing what God wanted me to do.
At age 14, Tina began babysitting for an IFB church family, Ernie and Tammy Willis, often spending the night, and she says confiding in them that her stepfather had molested her.
Did you feel safe with them?
Yes.
But in 1997, when Tina was 15, she says that illusion of safety was shattered when Ernie Willis volunteered to give her driving lessons.
And he pulled me in the back seat and raped me.
Did you try and fight back?
I have kind of blocked out a lot of those memories, and so I don't remember a lot of it. I do remember saying no.
How did you deal with the aftermath of that?
I think you just kind of like try to think it never happened. A good Christian doesn't press charges and doesn't, do anything. Forgive, forget, move on.
But a month after the alleged rape, Tina says Ernie Willis came knocking on her door. She was alone.
I opened it and I let him in. Stupid choice.
You were 15. You were a girl.
I still struggle to not blame myself.
Tina says she doesn't remember what happened next, only that for a second time, Ernie Willis raped her.
I did say no, and then I just blanked out. You just get to the point where you can't take any more.
And again, Tina says she remembered Pastor Phelps' instructions to forgive and forget. She told no one, not her mother, not her pastor, not the police.
In fact, I didn't even tell anybody until I found out I was 4 months pregnant.
Were you scared?
Yes, and I felt like my life was over.
My contact